Got dreams of being a professional podcaster, but have no idea what you're doing?
This is impossible.
That's about to change.
A new kind of school.
Welcome to the Pod School Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the show. Today I'm answering a question from Adam, which is, what are the hidden costs of podcasting and how much should you budget to have a real crack? Ooh, that's a tough question to answer specifically in terms of how much to budget. I would encourage you to go to the description of the episode, click the link to my free podcast guide and download that, because I've got a lot of different recommendations for different microphones and tools and tech that are, different for different budgets and things, and that can help you get set up. But I've been having to think about some of the things that you maybe don't think about when you first get started. And there are some things that can creep in, because there's quite a lot, if you're going to do this properly, that you can build out both inside and around your show. So I would say that, the initial costs you can definitely get up and running for pretty cheap. If you are getting into the stage where you want to upgrade, sometimes, you'll buy a microphone, you'll have decided that you want to record in some spot in your house, and then you're like, actually, this is really annoying, like it's taking up a lot of space. Maybe I want to buy like a boom arm, which is one of those arms that attaches to a desk that you can kind of fold, you can pull your microphone down, you can kind of fold it away, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, hang on a second, that's going to cost me like another $200 to get one of those. And it's all of that sort of like incremental creep that as you start to get more familiar with this stuff, you can start to go, okay, well, now I know what I'm doing and I know how this actually works in my life. These are the things that maybe I want to try and get to improve this experience for me. Because the interesting thing about podcasting is it does have to fit into your life in some way. I wish I had space in my house where I could have a dedicated setup, because one of the most frustrating things for me when I'm recording my podcast is I have to pull everything out and set everything up on my dining room table, because I don't have anywhere else to put it. And I don't want to have like a ring light and all of this crap. And, the ring light's up on 4 books. Like, it's not a pretty setup, but I don't want to have that out all the time. So I have to pack that down. So the pack up and pack down for me takes a really long time. And ideally, I would love to have a space, and I've been thinking, is there somewhere like I can put a tiny house version of a podcasting desk? And that stuff costs money, so that sort of stuff, once you get started, is the thing that you start to think about. But you can get set up very cheaply and just get going, and sometimes that's the best thing to do. I would flag, however, that the thing that you do want to spend money on ideally is a podcast host. I know there are a lot of podcast hosts out there that are free. I get it. If you are starting and you just want to go down a free path, that is totally fine. The decision is always up to you. I would just say that with any free product, you are the product because you are not paying. So they have to be getting value in some way. And there have been situations in the past where podcast hosts that were free were putting a little link to their stuff on your show notes, even though you didn't know about it. Or there was one podcaster that I spoke to who couldn't get their audio out of a podcast host to move to another podcast host. And that is a problem. So you want to make sure that you have read the T's and C's. And so if you've been thinking, okay, I know that I want to do this podcast host and they're free, so that's not going to cost me anything, just make sure you've read the fine print, because that actually might be a small cost. And some of them are really cheap, but that might be a small cost that you haven't factored in that you might need to think about. The same thing with editing programs and software. Audacity is a great program. It is free. A lot of podcasters use that. And if that works for you, fantastic. I find it a very clunky website to use. So I prefer to use Audition. That's what I use, and all of the producers in my teams have always used. It's a really easy to use show, but it does come with a cost. Now, it's not a massive cost. It's sort of something like $20 a month or something like that. But that can be a cost that you don't factor in if you jump into something like Audacity and you're like, I don't like how this works. This is actually really clunky and I'm not enjoying it. So I think it's those creep costs that come in only when you start to do the day-to-day that you didn't sort of factor in at the beginning that can really kind of trip you up. Marketing and promotion, you can do a lot of that for free for yourself in Canva, but you're going to probably need a social media scheduling tool, because unless you want to be on all of the platforms doing it live, like who's got time for that, And those things do cost money. If you want to run ads, that's maybe something for down the track, and there's, the jury's out on whether it's super great for podcasting, but it can be good for your brand awareness and stuff. But I would say definitely scheduling your social media is something that you want to do if you are doing that enough, because you just can't be in the apps all the time on the schedule that you need to be promoting your show if you want to get it out there. So that can really be expensive. Some of the other things you might not factor in, music and sound effects. You know, the music for the top and tail of your show. Ideally, you want an intro, outro music to make your show feel polished and finished. And that does cost money. You know, you can't just grab any sort of file off the internet. There are some free music sites for sure. Often you can't find the one you like on that site and you might have to go to a paid site. Make sure on those free sites, again, that you have read the T's and C's clearly and you know, I can use this ongoing for my podcast. I'm not going to have to take this music off because I've used it for a year or whatever it is. Make sure you've read the T's and C's. Also things like transcriptions, you know, that is going to cost you. It is really good to do that. But even if you have a podcast host that offers transcription, often because it does cost the host to get that transcription, that will result in an increase in your subscription to that podcast host. So that might not be a huge amount of money, but it might be something if you want to do transcripts, and it is a good idea to do transcripts. The last thing I would say is the main cost, and the main hidden cost is time. It takes a lot of time to get a podcast episode out and promoted correctly every single week. And I think this is the one thing that most people severely underestimate. And it is the one reason why a lot of podcasts don't last, because people go, I can't keep this up, because it is no picnic. It takes a lot of time. And everybody will have a different idea of what their time is worth. So that is, for me, the biggest hidden cost, because I don't think people understand that it takes a lot of space and a lot of people don't have the time required. So I always encourage people before they get started, practice. Even if you are talking into a toilet roll and you're not actually editing anything. Well, actually, editing would be an important step in the process, but record into your phone and then put that audio into your free editing software and have a crack at how long it takes you to edit. Now, you're not doing the recording for sound, you're doing it for timing. Like, how long does this take me? How long does it take me to prep an episode, to record an episode, to edit an episode? Then let me try and work out what my social media posts would be. Like, give it a crack and actually see what kind of time it takes you every week, so that you are not finding that out when you have told everybody that you're going to do a podcast. You're saying it comes out next week, and then it comes out next week and you're like, this is way too much. Because then you don't want to go dark and then try and relaunch again. You want to try and put as much oomph into that launch as you possibly can. So make sure that you know what you're getting into before you get into it, basically. If you want to get a sense of like how to set up a home studio and what you would need, head to the description of the episode. There is a link there to my free podcasting guide. I've got different microphones for different budgets, different podcast hosts, different editing software, just an idea of what you kind of need to get set up and get started at the very basic level. And that can help you kind of get an understanding of what's out there, what kind of cost would you need. You can probably get set up in the beginning for under $200, but then it's all of the additional stuff. I haven't even mentioned like a website. Do you want to get your website built by somebody, you know, or are you going to get a subscription to something like Wix and make it yourself? All of those kind of things are those incidental things, and I'm sure I'll remember a million different other things. But yeah, you have to think about all of the stuff that you require around your show. But in terms of getting set up at the start, you can do that quite cheaply, but your time is a big consideration. So make sure you factor that in, because that's where people trip up all the time. Thank you so much, Adam. I appreciate your question. If you have a question, just head to the description of the episode. There's a link there, as well as information on my online podcasting course, Pod School, that can help you start your very own show and make sure that you have all the knowledge that you need, so that you are not jumping into this blind like so many other people and going, this is not what I expected. My sort of goal with the course is to give you the best practice of sort of all the elements, so that you know this is the best way to do things, but also so you know this is what I have to do to actually release a podcast. Can I get into it now, or am I going to give it 6 months and just wait until I'm ready? So check that out. Would love to have you a part of the course. There's a wait list there if the course isn't open that you can join, so that I can send you an email as soon as it's open. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week.
That's all for today.